What do a speaking coach, a strategy consultant, and a researcher at a university have in common? Sounds like the start of a joke, right? But honestly, it's all about finding out what people really do in their jobs. The stories, the struggles, the coffee breaks. The real stuff you won't find in a job title.
Welcome to a space where we sit down with people from all kinds of careers, have a laugh, and dive into what makes their work meaningful. Whether you're looking to learn something new or just here for a good story, let us be your guide. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Charlie.
And let's get
Casually Pro.
So
Awesome.
Today I'm here. Today I'm here with Antonio Baldassarro, who I met a few years ago in France, then in Italy. He's the guy who introduced me to the real, legendary spaghetti bolognese. He's a researcher in neurosciences and molecular biology at the University of Bologna. Antonio, how are you? And can you please give us a small description of what you do?
Hello everyone. You already introduced me so well, so I have not more to say. You were very simple and directed to the point. I am Italian. I eat a lot of bolognese sauce, but not with spaghetti. This is a legend. Here we don't eat it with spaghetti.
I am flabbergasted.
Yeah, sorry.
the United, all of our United States listeners right now have their jaws on the floor. You have broken the zeitgeist of pasta in the U.S.
It comes from the U.S. after the Second World War, because the U.S. Army, they came in Italy and they had only spaghetti in U.S. as pasta, so they used bolognese with spaghetti.
What? Okay, I thought we were going to learn about molecular biology.
We can close the podcast. It's finished.
That's awesome. Well, okay, that's great. Listen, that is awesome. There are a lot of interesting topics, non-spaghetti related, that I am chomping at the bit to learn more about. So from what I hear and what we talked a little bit off camera about, you work in some interesting applications of molecular biology. Can you tell me kind of just a really basic overview of what you're doing and what you're working on?
Yeah, we are trying to simplify very complex things, because our body and our organism and living things, they are very complex. So when you want to understand some specific mechanisms, you have too many variables playing around that can hide what you're searching for. So we are simplifying things. We are using models, more simple or more complex, depends. We have to find, like, for each model, an equilibrium between this, to simplifying things or to be as much as like the human organism. So between this equilibrium, we find the right model to understand molecular mechanisms and to try maybe to understand how diseases works and how we can fight them, and how we can test the therapeutical strategies.
Fascinating. It seems to be a lot of analytics behind what you're doing, correct? Kind of taking a deep analysis of very complex processes or organic processes and breaking it down into really useful components.
Yeah, well, we are working with living things. For example, I am specialized in using the cell systems, so like using simple or complex cell models that we can go very deep inside their life. We can modify their DNA. We can let them be as color as we want to see how they works and how the molecules inside they works. So I'm actually struggling with with living things, because living things are not mathematics, and they always change and they always try to make you mad.
When you say living things, are you talking about animals?
Also animals, yes. I am affiliated to the Veterinary Science University, even if I am biotechnologist and I have a PhD in molecular and cellular science. So we are working both on animal models as less as we can, because ethically we want to remove the research on animals, because it's ethically, of course, it's not the right things to do, but it's the only way that we have to test drugs. It's the only way we have to understand our lives. But on the other side, we are working also on spontaneous disease on the animals, because we have the clinic of veterinary science in our university. So we work both on animals that are right there, and we can test therapies on them to treat them, to make their life better. And also we can work in other topics using the animals that we have, for example, in the sea, to understand, for example, how climate change is changing our world. They are like sentinel of what is going on in our world and how things are changing.
Wow. So it seems as though your work touches quite a few areas, not just traditional medicine, but also veterinary medicine, environmental impact, all sorts of different areas. I mean, how does this process start? Where do you start looking at how these processes affect things?
I start my career soon after my master degree. I started working in the lab where I am now, even if I made some periods of my research and life abroad, for example, in France, in Strasbourg, where I met Jeff. And the first time I started working on one very specific cell that we have in our body, that is called oligodendrocyte. This cell is making the myelin sheath, it's called, that is the like the cable that is surrounding our nerves and helps the electric signal to pass in our nerve. Without them, we cannot, the nerve cannot communicate between neurons, because the electric signal will be dissipated. But now we know that these cells are not only like physical sheet around the nerves, but they are working together with neurons. So they have functions that are very important for our brain.
Wow.
And these cells are also involved in some diseases like multiple sclerosis, where these cells are destroyed by the own body of the patients that is affected by multiple sclerosis. So I started working on these specific cells to understand the molecular mechanisms underlying his life and his differentiation, maturation, and what is going on when diseases are affecting these cells.
So, in terms of your background here, you started from a biology degree, or is it a specific kind of area of study that led to this?
No, I have a master degree in biotechnology.
Biotech. Okay, very interesting. I just want to know kind of how you start your research. Do you pick a random kind of cellular part to study? Are there specific areas of interest inside of your field that warrant looking at specific parts? Or is it just a combination of interest in whatever you find in your studies leading up to your research, where you dive deep?
Okay, this seems a simple question, but it's very complicated because we have many variables again playing around. Because it's the poetic view of science, where you are just fascinating about a topic and you start thinking about and picking some questions and trying to answer them, and you see the scientists that have passion for what he's doing. But the reality is that you need money to do research
Mm,
and money is not easy to find. And usually what I love and what many scientists love is the basic research. I mean, to understand how things works. But the
mm.
basic research has usually very little funding. everywhere in the world. And especially in Italy, it's very difficult to find money just to answer some biological questions. So I know that this cell is working like this, but I want more deep. I want to go more deep in the mechanisms. Can I have money for do this? The answer is always no, because now research everywhere in the world have less and less money when the years are, they have less and less money every year. And usually they give money if the research is bringing something that we can use, that we can sell, that we can touch with our hands. It's not only knowledge, but it's something industrial usually. So
and
you
from
have to balance between the funding that you can ask and what you won't really do.
it seems from what you told us before that the aim of your research is ultimately to cure diseases. Is that is that why you got funding to do those research?
It's the yeah, it's the most easy way to find funding is to search for some new therapeutical strategies to treat diseases. So we have a lot of diseases now that are not yet, that they don't have any therapy or very little therapy. And
So
we are, the best way to find funding is to think about new strategies, because usually, for example, in the central nervous system, in the brain, it's very complicated to manipulate our brain to cure it, because sometimes the molecules, the drugs, they don't arrive to the brain because we have like a barrier that protect the brain to external molecules like drugs. And it's very, when the one organ like brain is very specialized, it's very fixed, and it's difficult to go inside and change what is not working well. This is why we need very like combination between different sciences, material science, chemistry, pharmacology, biotechnology, before all the diseases that we treat and we cure now, they are only, sometimes it's only the pharmacological topic. They think about new drug is released, the drug is working. Now it's the diseases that we are working on, and they are not yet curable, like Alzheimer, for example. You cannot imagine that you will find one drug that will cure Alzheimer. It's impossible. You have to combine different topics, different researcher, as I said before, between material science, with nanoparticles, viruses. It's very complicated. And this is what we are what we are working on.
So this is a really interesting topic because this kind of challenges at least my own preconceptions of what a scientist is, right? My interpretation coming up through academia was that a scientist is someone who really devotes their entirety of time looking into research, but it's usually a very seldom multiple person pursuit. But what you're telling us is that now in the course of creating modern medicine and modern therapies, there are a lot of different topics that kind of mix and meld. And so it seems like this is much more of a collaborative effort than maybe in previous iterations of, research and discovery. Is that what you're trying to allude to here?
It's exactly like this, until maybe 20, 30 years ago, you always imagine the scientist that alone is working on his topic and is searching for something new. Now it's not possible anymore, this kind of research. Alone, the scientist is nothing. You have to find collaboration, you have to understand things from different point of views.
Well, I hope that doesn't dissuade any of our introvert listeners into going into the sciences here. But no, it's very good to hear that there's a lot of advancement that comes with mixing multiple disciplines. I would imagine that, just looking at combining something like chemistry and material sciences, there would be a whole world of possibilities that develop from intertwining those disciplines. So, I mean, could you tell us something about your research that kind of touches on multiple disciplines? Maybe something in particular with a process that you're working on?
Yeah, I can give you some example. We are working on new therapeutical strategies using nanoparticles, for example. And the nanoparticles are made by chemistry that are working specifically on this kind of material. They give to us these nanoparticles and we say to them what to put inside the nanoparticles because we need to, and where the nanoparticles should arrive at the end. So they make, I mean, like 1.5 years of work on their side to find the best nanoparticle and the best conditions. After they give the nanoparticles to us and we test the nanoparticles and we see, for example, in which kind of cells they arrive, if they release what they have inside to cure a disease, for example, bringing drugs or bringing something that in the cell is synthesized in a wrong way. So with the nanoparticles, we bring the working molecule. And in the brain science, the most difficult thing is to let this nanoparticle arrive to the brain without losing them around the body or like eliminating from the body. And we have to test. So for example, another scientist can put in this nanoparticle a molecule that is fluorescent. So we can see if we give this nanoparticle to our cells, we can see with microscope this spot inside our cells that are the spot of the nanoparticles.
Wow, that must be so interesting to be able to go across other boundaries of science. I wonder, Antonio, if you are you yourself keeping in touch with all those different domains, or do you know key people from other fields that can keep you in touch with the new discoveries?
I mean, every topic that we touch, we are like choosing what to analyze in our side, going very deep inside the topic, and what to keep in the surface of the knowledge and like give the responsibility of this part of the story to another group or another kind of researcher, because of course you cannot like study every kind of science yourself, and this is the best way to collaborate, is to trust the other group and give the responsibility and to know that they are working in a like following the good laboratory practice that we need to produce the best therapeutic strategies that we can.
I also wonder, as a software engineer, I used to go to psychology conferences to see what's going on and see if I can help. And I was very surprised to notice that I seem to be the only non-psychologist at those conferences. So I wonder if you go to conferences from other domains, because I imagine it's something that people have to make the effort to do, but doesn't happen just automatically.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes, yes. Because I am okay. Because I'm curious. Because I would like also to know what is going on in other fields and also in the fields that are collaborating with us. Sometimes it's nice to go there and just have an overview of what is going on. But yes, like 90% of the congresses and conferences that I attend is on my field. So neuroscience, molecular biology, and these kind of conferences, these kind of topics.
So, we talk a lot about collaboration and we explored a lot about different areas, but help me understand why. Why are you so passionate about this area of study? I'm sure there's something that's driving you outside of maybe pure discovery, or maybe it is pure discovery, but I'd love to hear more about your fascination with the field.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer to this question because it's something, you know, that you have inside that you know you won't follow. You know you want to understand how life works, and it's just pushing you in that direction, even, you know, without thinking about it. It's you know, since my like elementary school, I had always the two sides of my personality, so the artistic side and the scientific side, like walking in the parallel street. But you know, studying, I was always choosing science, and in the other part of my life, art, it's always present. But because, you know, it's two different way to describe world. Artists and scientists, they are just describing the world in a different way.
That's beautiful, if I'm being honest, the description. And I'm so curious to hear, because you said that you have this kind of part of you that's artistic. Would you say that to be successful in your field, or at least to start broaching success in your field, you have to be creative, to understand maybe not just the complexities, but maybe the application of those complexities in research?
Yeah, I think so. I think that creativity can give you something more in this, also in the science field. And sometimes it's difficult to make other people understand what is the real job of the scientist, because we always talk about, okay, you research about this, you research about that, okay, but also my parents ask me, but what do you do every day? What is your your day work? Okay, you research about this, but what does it mean? You sit at the table and think, or you do other things? So it's complicated, because scientists have to be okay, researcher, so studying. It's a like permanent student, because you have always update with science, always studying. Also other topics that are far from your study topic. Then you have to, you know how to make posters when you go to conferences. So you have to be also graphics. You have to know how to prepare the poster in a graphical way. You
Wow.
have to you should have the public speech skills, because you have to speak in Congress sometimes, like 200 people, and a lot of young researchers, they have problem to speak in public, and they
Mhm.
have a lot of anxious, they like stuck when they try to speak. And also you have to know how to teach, because we should teach at university. So how to prepare lesson, how to communicate with students and with scientists. It's, you know, it's not only research. You have to be like 100 different works.
Wow. So
And you have, oh, sorry, the other part is you have to find funding. That is the one of the main part of the research. So you should know how to write the submission, and how to ask funding in a, you know, in a nice way, that the people that review your request, they would give you money. You have to sell somehow your science, and you have to after manage your money. So you should have also economy skills. Because it's not so easy, and no one teach you how to do it. It's not nothing at university that teach you how to do all these things. You should learn in the field.
that's incredible. And you know, it's a really interesting point that you bring up, because again, this preconception of a researcher sitting at a desk staring at papers for their entire career is completely blown out of the water, because there's so many front-facing person skills that you need to master to become a successful scientist, in, I'm assuming, any capacity. If you could speak to anyone who is coming up through academia and trying to really develop some skills, or a point of view that can help make them a better scientist, what would you tell them?
I don't know if I have the, you know, if I am in a position to to give this kind of direction to young researcher. I don't feel so confident myself. But I would just tell them to don't be scared to learn new things, to face new new skills that you have to learn, because we are everyone in the same position. No one teach us how to do things, so just don't be scared and try.
Wow, I will rephrase Charles' questions because this answer isn't satisfying, fully satisfying to me. I would say, what skill would you tell a young researcher that you might not want to develop this skill, but trust me, you really should make the effort, even if it doesn't seem to be primarily used in research?
Mm-hmm. Maybe communication in all the points of view of the communication. So how to make new collaborations, so how to communicate with your peers, and how to communicate with audience to make people understand what we are doing, because it's not so clear usually. And university have it's called the third mission of the university, is to speak to audience, to make audience understand what is going on inside labs. And this is very important. But communication, it's also, as I said before, to speak in public, in the Congress, um, to sell your research, but usually it's like not a nice word when you say sell your research, but it's in a good point of view. It's not
It's what
to sell what you are doing. It means to make people understand and make them interested in what you're doing.
you mean what's important and what impact it could have on the world?
No, sorry, I didn't get the question.
Yeah, you mean selling in the sense of telling people why it's important, what kind of impact it can have on the world, and why we should absolutely do this research.
Exactly, because you are doing something that for you it's important, but if it's important only for you, it will not go nowhere. It should be important for the world, should be important for people that give money, should be important for the audience.
Fascinating. So along the lines of communication, kind of breaking down, and I think it's funny that we started this podcast with a description of a piece of the cell that wraps the neuron that's meant to help neurons communicate, right? At a macro and micro level, science is about communication, discovery, and communication. But, going along those lines, there are a lot of complex processes that you're going through every day, both in terms of research and in terms of creating these programs, I'm sure, for teaching and everything. How do you approach creating that complex process from scratch? There are so many things that I find myself doing in the course of my work where I am handling complex process from beginning to end. And the way that I do it is very different from others, especially in the realm of academia. So I'm just curious to see, where do you start?
I start from writing like hundreds of to-do lists every day. So I have like for each topic, I have different to-do lists and try every day to remove something, but usually it's not working. So
easier to add than to remove.
Yes, I just add new things in the to-do list, so not really working.
I wonder if you have tricks to share about how you adapt to the expertise level of your audience, because as you said, sometimes you speak to peers and colleagues who are experts, sometimes you teach to people who are really new, and I think you even share what you do to a completely non-scientific audience. How do you craft your message in
Yeah,
relation?
then very good question. I don't have some like guidelines to do this to arrive like at a good level to communicate in these different levels of knowledge. It's very complicated, but you can learn it only doing it, because you when you start speaking with an audience that don't know nothing about molecular science, for example, you will see from the eyes if you are going too deep, if you are saying something that they totally they are thinking about, I don't know, their shopping or going to, I don't know, out of the room where you're speaking, or what they would like to eat for dinner. You understand from their eyes that you are losing.
Yeah, attention don't lie.
So you have to arrive to this level that you start speaking. And when you see that you are losing your audience, you like decrease the level of what you are saying.
Would you say that it's more difficult speaking to someone who understands the context of your background because you have to get deeper into an area that you are an expertise in? Or is it harder kind of switching that off and then turning something that you know inside and out into a very small and easy bite-sized piece of information that can be easily understood?
I don't know if it's about difficulties, because they are so different. These kind of communications, they are so different between them that I cannot like say what is more difficult. They are just two totally different things. It's like speaking two different languages. And you can say, I mean, my mother tongue is Italian, and if you ask me if it's more easy English or French, and I can manage these two languages very well, both of them, I cannot give an answer. It's just two different languages.
Which do you prefer?
Both. But I can really, they are so interesting, both of them, that I cannot really make a list of what is better. Sorry, I don't know
No, that's
if
fine.
it's a good answer, but
No, that's okay. Because you know what? In the course of my work, I have to explain really complex things that people might not understand into bite-sized pieces. And I find that fascinating because you have an opportunity to really prove that you are an expert in that field. Because if you can't explain it in a very simple way, do you really understand all the concepts in their entirety? And vice versa, if you're talking to someone who's an expert in your field, I feel as though you're constantly trying to push the envelope and kind of discover something that you might be able to provide for them that is outside of their realm of expertise, which uh, is important. But in my field, in the way that I feel, it feels almost competitive. And so I generally gravitate towards helping people understand complex ideas that they might not be familiar with because I feel like it's more collaborative as opposed to the other side. But that's just my opinion on it. Jeff, I don't know if you have any takes on how that might work out in this field or in your field.
Yeah, I like the analogy of saying it's like two different languages, because we can talk about the same concepts, but the way we bring them creates a completely different mental image in our brain. So even if there are relations between the way we talk simply about things and the way we talk about those things in the complex way, it's there is really a difference between the two. And you can well be an expert in a topic but not able to speak about it in a very complex way if you never did it before. If you don't do on purpose develop those links between the complex ideas and the simple, it might not have been created in your brain. And I think that explains why some people have trouble to explain to an audience. It's if you never do it, it's very hard to start. So I think the approach that works the best is to keep a foot in the simple way of explaining the idea while you learn and while you do more. The question I'd like to ask Antonio is, do you think that by talking about what you're doing in simple way, and which might be a different way of seeing it, does it gives you insights on your research? Like you might understand things in a different way and have ideas for new areas of research, for example.
Yeah, it's I think it's always good to look at your topics in different way, in a different point, from different point of views, and it may help sometimes to simplify complex topics, or it gives you also an opportunity to see the topic from like outside, because you are sometimes too much inside that you miss some details, you miss the full overview of the topic. But when you have to simplify it for an audience that doesn't have the knowledge to understand the details, it's a good opportunity to watch the topic from outside and look at the full overview. And maybe you can find new connection, new ideas, just going a little bit far from what you are doing.
I think sometimes we say that you really understand something only after you teached it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
You know, it's really funny because conjuring in my mind this image of a genius kind of going along his regular busy day and then going into a bath and then realizing that his body weight can displace water to an equal amount of volume, yelling "Eureka!" is kind of the idea that Jeff is going towards, right? There's some kind of simple things that you can do or simple illusions that you can reach that create these really, really mind-blowing epiphanies about your work. And you know, along those lines, have you had any eureka moments, and would you share those with us?
Yeah, sometimes it happens anyway that these kind of things, that you have ideas suddenly that like 99% of them usually they don't work, but maybe 0.1 or 1% sometimes they work. It's let me think about. It's not okay. What I'm saying is not something that comes out from my mind. I don't remember where I hear it the first time. But for the very nice thing of science and research, that you are of course in the edge of knowledge, is that usually everything you are watching, for example, in your microscope during the day, maybe you are the first person in the world that you're looking at that maybe single mechanism molecule, or some, I don't know, some cellular process. Usually it's very little detail that it's not really pushing the knowledge so far. But when you put all these details together, it's like the brick of the house. So at some point, one brick is nothing. You cannot cover yourself from the rain with a brick. But when you put all the bricks together, at the end, you will have a very nice house. So the research is like this. You have little ideas, you have little, I don't know, processes going on, and at the end, maybe after 20, 30, 50 years, the house will be there, and one or two bricks, they have your sign on it.
So again,
wow, I love
blowing the misconception that, oh, one day something just clicks and a scientific discovery gets thrown into the universe. There, it's less of a eureka and more like a long out eureka over many years.
Usually, there was this comic, the little comic with scientists that usually in the classical picture they say eureka, eureka, but in the reality they're just yelling.
And it seems that those eureka aren't really the scientist who's having his eureka, but it's more like something that you build together with other people? So the Eureka at the end is more like a collective effort?
Yeah. Usually, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. For sure, sometimes it happens, but it's more poetic than the reality.
I wonder if you had this beautiful image of the researcher was really at the boundary of human knowledge, and what the researcher sees is she is the first person that can see this for in the history of humankind. Is it something that you think about during your daily work?
Yeah. It happens many times that you look at something and you really think, okay, I am the first in the world that I'm looking at. Maybe it's nothing for the humankind. It's one detail that is important only for me. But okay, I'm the first in the in the world to watching at this.
I think this is key because most of the time, how we feel about what we are doing is completely dependent of our way of explaining what we are doing. And by finding the most beautiful way to see something, we can really find an amazing meaning in big or small things that we do in every life, everyday's life.
Yeah. And sometimes, we are working with like models of terrible diseases, and we are collaborating with also association of patients. So sometimes you have also the pressure that yes, you want to see something for the first time, but sometimes you really want that you are watching for the first time in the humanity, it's something good for these patients. Um, because, for example, we work with the rare diseases, genetic diseases of the brain development, and when you see the patients, the connection between all these ideas, cells, and molecular mechanisms, they like translate in a humankind that needs something, and this is really pushing you to work hard on the topic.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the tremendous burden it would be to look at something like a horrible disease, and imagine that your work is going to change the lives of so many patients. And if it doesn't work, then it's back to the drawing board. It's one more failed attempt, but there must be such a catharsis when you make a breakthrough and you see something change, even if it's very nominal, even if it's just the tip of the proposed outcome iceberg. There must be something wonderful about progressing.
Yeah, it's something that as I said before, really it's pushing you through all the struggling of the day, of the research, of the funding. There is something under. It's not, yeah, it's knowledge. It's you want to know things, but you want to also help people or the environment. Because as I said before, we are working in different topics. So we have the patient side, the animal side, but we have also the environment side. Because our group, our research groups, and this is also thankful to the professor, the PIs of the group, that they have this overview, because they say, and we totally agree, it's useless to cure Alzheimer disease if the world is going to end for climate change in few years. So, so we should work on together on the different topics. For example, we are working on the clams, mussels, and oysters in the Mediterranean Sea, because we have these heat waves in the sea all over the world.
Mm.
Usually in the oceans, they are these are not the wild animals, the animals that they used to eat. Like the farming of the clams, oysters. And when the heat waves arrive, for example, in Spain, Portugal, they just bring the oysters and clams in the north because it's more
Mm.
cold. In the Mediterranean Sea, we cannot do it because it's closed. So this year we have no clams, no mussels, no oyster, and we have 1,000 people they are without job these years.
Wow.
Here because they are all dead for the climate change. And this is, of course, economic side, but there is also the environmental side because the wild animals, they are in the same situations. And you have the fish, usually they can swim out of the sea when it's too hot. But the clams and the other animals, they are bentonic, so they cannot walk, they cannot swim, they just die. And this is terrible. This year in the different regions of Italy, in Puglia, Sardinia, and other, also close to here, close to Bologna, we have no shellfish selling this year.
Wow.
Oh.
Oh, that's awful to hear, but it highlights the importance of what you do and really the area that people need to have recognition for, which is those who are pushing the bounds of science, not just for interest, intrigue, or the almighty dollar, but because somewhere along the line, one of these eurekas, one of these breakthroughs, one of these moments of clarity can maybe help save a lot of people.
I don't know, because we are always, as I told you, the funding for research, even if it's clear that, not because I am inside the field, but it's clear that we need the help of the science to go out from all the problems that we have, from economic problems to climate change problems to diseases. But usually the funding are less and less and less, because I don't know why, actually. I was about to say because something, but there is no reason, no lucid reason to remove funding from research.
Antonio, related to what you just said, there is a question that I like to ask all of our guests. So now, if you have 2 minutes to share a message with everyone on Earth of today, as with everyone from the future generations, what would be your message?
In general, or like linked to my job and my topics? Or
You have a microphone and you can leave a message.
It's all up to you.
Everyone.
Okay, to everyone, I would just say don't be assholes and enjoy. I don't know. I don't know if it's related to research, but
Whoa, okay. I think it's very easy to understand.
It's about as simple as it gets. I can't think of anything
Eric,
better.
you can apply it on the topics that you want.
But when you think about it, it's actually quite deep.
Oh, that's wonderful. Antonio, thank you so much for spending this time with us. It was great to hear about what you're doing, your work, all the processes, and just getting to know about such a cool career path.
Yeah, it was super cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me and for the nice speaking. Nice.
Thank you. And for all our listeners, you can rate the podcast on the platform you're listening. Don't hesitate to leave comments to make the podcast more known, and visit our website if you want to reach out to us to propose episodes or for anything else. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.